And action, Mark.
Welcome to my lucky welcome to my lucky Kiwi of the podcast.
Just say, welcome to the Lucky Kiwi podcast.
Welcome to the lucky.
Welcome
to the lucky
Potty.
potty.
It's simple, Mark. Welcome to the Lucky Kiwi podcast.
Can't I just do it myself?
Okay.
Welcome to the Lucky Kiwi podcast. I'm looking forward to the episode.
Hey guys, this is Jared. As far as how the books and films have changed my life, so my first exposure to The Lord of the Rings, to anything Tolkien related, was actually the extended edition of Return of the King. Early 2000s, I was 11 or 12, and I had not read a word of Tolkien, not seen the first two films, but my dad came home from work one day, a coworker had given him, or loaned him, the big blue box DVD set of the extended edition of Return of the King. So this is the best movie I've ever seen. You've got to check it out. So we watched it, and yeah, I was blown away, completely obsessed. I remember the next morning, must have been a Saturday morning or something, because I went straight to that box set and grabbed the next discs that were in there, which are the appendices, and I started watching those all the way through. I think there was like 9 hours of material on those things, and I blew through all of that in that one Saturday. And that was my first exposure to not only anything Lord of the Rings or Tolkien related, that was my first exposure to realizing how films get made. You know, as a kid, you know, films are just like a magical thing, and they just sort of are there. You don't think about how they're made. Seeing those behind the scenes documentaries, that really impacted my life, because suddenly it was this realization that, oh wow, people have their whole jobs that are all about making movies. They make that their whole career, and that's all I want to do. And so that, you know, that informed the next 20 some odd years of my life, and led me to go to film school and continue to work in the industry. And now I'm in media production. And so it's been a very huge impact on my life. And of course, I also became obsessed with Tolkien after that. So Jed, my question for you, or for any actors that may be with you on the show, what have you noticed from an actor's point of view, from the best directors that you've worked with, that you appreciate the most as an actor? Thanks, Jed. Hope you're doing well.
Kia ora, Jared. Your question to me is, what makes the best directors as an actor? For me, the best directors are the ones that get under each individual actor's skin. They give them the background of the character, they give them all the information that they have as a director about how that works in the scene, but they expect the actor to turn up with a fully formed performance, which they then tweak. Peter Jackson is incredibly good at that. He likes to give everybody the most amount of background information about their characters and how the scene works and what the drama is supposed to be within the scene. They expect the actor to turn up with a performance for their character, and then they just tweak it until they have what they want.
Hey Jed and Amanda, and hey Jared, nice to meet you, even though we're probably several thousand miles apart. Nice to be here. I can see you because I've just cleaned my glasses.
Oh, there you go.
Welcome.
Welcome, Stephen. We're going to ask you a few random questions today, probably questions that you've never been asked before. I'm going to put my glasses on and see if I can find you a decent one. Yeah, so here's a good one. This is one for people that have been on tour and low budget films like all of us have. When was the
Yep.
last time you had to wash your clothes in a hotel sink?
Um, Probably it was about, oh, how many years ago? Zero years. I've never washed my clothes in a hotel sink. Um, I'm probably I'm an overpacker. I take as many as my luggage allows, and then I've got a very nice laundry bag, possibly from Claridge's, possibly from the Langham, um,
Ooh.
that I take with me, and so I have enough clothes that I pack. Or like when we were doing the premiere in London, I I'd send them to laundry. And remember, they all came back in those plastic things. So I've got all these photos of AC/DC and Metallica t-shirts in plastic wrap,
You
which
know,
is
I didn't realize that everything was being picked up by Warner Brothers at Claridge's. I didn't touch the minibar. I didn't I didn't do any services that they offered, the laundry and stuff. I just thought I looked at the prices and went, $150 for a chocolate bar, little steep for me. Probably not gonna, I mean, it might be great chocolate. Just looks
mm.
like Cadbury's.
I think we had $150 per diem in New York. And then when we went to London, they were like, whatever you like. But like you, being a Kiwi, I had friends come over for dinner because I went out every night. And then I got five friends come over for dinner. And that was my little splurge on room service. And breakfast every morning, obviously. Um, and and then I had a friend try and pick out like a 250 pound half bottle of Krug. And I was like, oh, no, maybe get the other one. Just got a bit wrong.
Yeah. I only found out the next day when everybody was talking about what they'd, what the wine that they'd had and how much it cost and how it was free. I was like, what? I did have someone turn up to dress me in my suit.
Hmm.
He said, does Sir require me to help Sir dress? I was like, I'm looking around going, who's he talking to? Who's the Sir? Well, I had three rooms and one was like the room for dressing in. And I said, no, I'll be fine. He says, is Sir sure? I'm like, yeah, Sir's sure that Sir
Yeah,
can
are
dress
you sure
himself.
that was a dresser? Because I'm pretty sure no one else was. I would, I
Really?
would have checked that out immediately. Did he try and take your
Wow.
inside leg like numerous times?
He did. He didn't have a tape measure either. Just a just a piece of
There we go.
string.
He measured it in
Yeah, no,
hands.
He measured it in hands like a horse.
magical hands. Yep. No, I think I've heard
Yeah,
about that later. Anyway, we didn't want to tell
yeah.
you.
Didn't you have a
Yeah.
story about how somebody had to go buy underwear for you and they were too small or something?
Okay, so that was when I got to go to the premiere in London where you guys unhappily weren't. I'd done this
Yeah.
fan gig with Peter where I'd stayed and done 4 hours of signing for 150 special guests at Park Road Post, and that was when they told Peter that the Kiwis wouldn't be going, and he said, "Well, you have to take him because he's done all this stuff for free and you haven't paid him." So I got to go, which was really weird because I didn't know you guys weren't coming. And
Well, that's
my
good.
bag,
I'm glad at
my
least some of us got there.
yeah, my bag went missing. And so I
Ah,
arrived at the premiere with my suit, but no underwear, no shirt, no shoes. And so they sent someone off to do some shopping for me, and they came back, and it was the underwear was way too small. Like, I'm not a big guy, but this was kind of children's underwear. So then Adam Brown and his mother went with me to a very close department store and bought me shoes and socks and underwear, which was cool.
that's fantastic. My mother actually got me a packet of socks and undies, as you do every Christmas. And one particular year, um, when my daughter's mother was the first time that she came to New Zealand, and they were little boys' undies from
Ah,
farmers. So yeah,
yes.
I've had that. I actually had a security guard escort me out of Claridge's just to go and buy some socks for the premiere because all the scalpers were there.
Uh,
And so he was there running interference, and I remember thinking to myself, this will never happen again. It'll never happen
it-
again. They were very
and
nice socks too. No.
has it happened
And
again? No.
I've lost one of the socks. I've only got one of those socks. I don't know where the other one went. So
Yeah, those scalpers, mate, they tracked you down. They knew they'd get
yeah,
that sock eventually.
yeah, yeah.
It's on eBay. I saw it.
All right.
Fantastic. Yeah. Along with Jed's little boy
Um,
undies.
I know. Yeah. Well, this is an interesting one for people of our generation. How has aging changed the way that you, Stephen Hunter, approach your role?
Um, well, I think first and foremost, aging is I think life experience. Just because you experience more and you can bring more into it. Um, I was always told by one of my early acting coaches that when you have children, that will enhance it. So that when Rosie came along, that definitely helped. Um, but I think I'm a lot more professional. I've changed my social habits, so I don't go out drinking anymore. So that definitely helps. So my preparation and just from getting older, I'm probably fitter now than what I was. I mean, we're pretty fit doing the Hobbit, but I'm probably fitter now because of lifestyle stuff, um, and also because I'm an acting coach as well. I'm teaching a lot of people about really. I made the distinction just around the age of 50 that this was something that I just creatively had to do and it was about creatively expressing myself rather than going hell for leather trying to get the role and get the job. And I still get attached to those. You still audition and you still go through that kind of process. But um, I think now I've realized at a very late age that it's something I have to do, and it's just being creative. And I believe if you really enjoy something and you do it for just the joy of doing it, then you're going to work harder, and then those results will kind of come. And that's kind of how I operate as an acting coach as well. So yeah, I think that's helped. And being a mentor for a lot of people, I've got clients now who are booking work and getting back to me, and they're just learning so much stuff that I've learned the hard way because I didn't learn in the same way. I kind of learned like most of us through trial and error. Um, yeah, and I think also, as you know, like your life evolves and you go through different stages, and nothing is ever the same. And that's fine, like I think you just kind of take on experiences and you make new friends, and that all kind of feeds into it. But I think definitely as you get older, those experiences help you as an actor.
Yeah.
And the fact that as you get older, you don't do as much dumb stuff on set and you let the stuntmen do it. Although, I don't know, I reckon you'd probably still be doing a lot of that.
Well, I do, unfortunately for my body. Do you remember you and I had to carry each other in dwarf boot camp, and I carried you, and then
Oh,
you blew your
yes.
calf out. You blew your calf out carrying me.
Yes. You almost ruined my job. Thank you, Jed.
I did.
No,
Yeah.
that was that they got us to no, it was because I thought, why don't I've got Jed on my back, and it's like, why don't I like go into a
Run.
light job? Why
Yeah.
don't I start running? And then pop, it went. And I thought, that there would have been someone like, big tall Seb or something like in the background with a sniper's rifle just to like just take me out, drag me
He
out the
he
back.
was he was
Yeah.
there.
And then
Yeah.
they would have had a replacement. That was a very stressful time because I remember my mum and dad were there. My dad was still alive, and um, they were down at the time, and I came in hobbling, and I had a really good. That's when I first discovered like needle therapy, not acupuncture, but just like needlework where they just move it around. And he said that there was like a bit of balsa wood about that big on my calf muscle because everything tightened up around it. Because you get a tear and everything kind of tightens up. And he just worked that and got smaller and smaller and smaller. And production they were always going, wanting updates, wanting updates. Because I'm sure, obviously, for a production of that size, they wanted to make sure if I was going to be out for like 3 months, it just would have been over. So yeah, that was pretty stressful. So I'm not going to run with Jed Brophy on my back again. I
No,
will carry you, like
yeah.
in certain circumstances, but I probably won't run.
I will carry you, Mr. Brophy. I know that Weta was making a bottom half leg for you just in case. And Seb had the
Nice.
chainsaw sharpened up. I mean, they were willing to do whatever to keep you on the job.
I would have
They'll
taken that.
go the extra distance. Yeah, yeah,
Yes, yes, yes.
yeah.
I would have taken that any day of the week.
Do you want to ask Stephen a question?
Um, yes. Sorry, I had my friend, she came over yet. This is not part of it. I'm just telling you, Stephen. I had my friend over yesterday and she spent the night and it's like too much social time already, so I'm really struggling. So that's why I'm a little bit quiet today.
That's
But
all right.
I'm
Take your
I'm
time. It's all
trying.
good.
Thank
No, you're
you.
good.
What do you miss most about your ordinary life while filming for months away?
Um, that's a good question because I think sometimes as actors, that is our ordinary life, being away. But I miss being at home. I remember months away, and I just want to. There's a caveat with this: is that this is 100% in the category of first world problems, right? But when we were doing The Hobbit, we were living in Wellington, which was actually my hometown, but my family was there, and my daughter was 10 weeks old when we moved, which is just ridiculous for her mother to put her through that. Looking back now, but I miss kind of running my own life. I remember coming back to Sydney after filming because there was a time I was like, why don't we stay in Wellington? Because it's all here. And then I'm like, hang on, there's going to be no job. There's going to be no car. There's going to be no one picking me up in the morning. Like, they're not going to give us a house. They're not going to, all this kind of stuff. And then, yeah, nah, we'll go back to Sydney. And I remember going and buying a car, finding a place to rent, organizing all my own bills and electricity and all that kind of stuff. And so I like being quite autonomous. And as great as it is being looked after and treated kind of like a rock star, there's a couple of downsides to that. I really don't think, in hindsight, I was the best version of myself a lot of times during that job. And I look back now and think, because you do get carried away, and it's people don't tell you that, and people go, oh, if I do this, I'll never change, or make sure I don't change. Well, you do, like it does. It does alter you even for a short time. So I look back now a bit cringy. I mean, I made some amazing friends, like Jed and like a lot of the overseas guys. I was about to say some, yeah, and the overseas guys. But um, yeah, I think there's this kind of almost like expectation you put upon yourself when you're doing this.
Yeah.
You're in this bubble, basically, this fantasy bubble. And people were like, then now you're going to go to LA and you're going to do this and you're going to do that. And I was totally caught up in that. And I think, and then getting back to it, it was great to do normal stuff again. But then it was such a like a sugar rush. And the end of it, and I know pretty much everyone from Jed and all the New Zealand guys, especially, would have felt that because we were
Yeah.
suddenly in this heightened world. So we kind of missed being like our normal selves, but then we've had a taste of what it's like. So coming back was terrible. And I remember the time where I actually felt grounded when I was doing a half day on Home and Away, wearing a hideous green shirt that was two sizes too big for me, working across from one of the the regular actors on the show, um, and doing this real nuts little scene, and it wasn't great television, to be honest. But I remember at the time going, "Oh, this is the job. You just turn up, you do the work, you go home." And that was the first time I kind of got back to the reality of this is what I do, because in I hadn't done any of the other films. I mean, The Hobbit was essentially my first film. Well, it was the first film. I'd done some TV roles and support roles. So then coming back, I couldn't come back and go, "Hey, I've just done $1 billion film." I remember going to the red carpet of the Actor Awards in Sydney after doing all the red carpet for the movies, and no one knew who I was.
Yeah.
So I kind of had to start from where I left. I couldn't start from where I have just come from. It was kind of weird. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
the industry is kind of cruel like that. It's all about flavor of the minute and who is the flavor of the minute. And this idea of celebrity doesn't really wash in New Zealand anyway. We're like,
no,
unless you're an All Black. If
yeah,
you're a sports star, it's a bit different. But it's almost like people want to see you fall down from the pedestal as well. It's a kind of a weird mentality in
mm,
the industry in our country. Someone said to me, "Well, you've had your turn.
mm,
Good for you, you've had your turn. You're not all that." And I was like, I wasn't even thinking I was all that. I was just turning up to an audition. I'm like,
yeah,
oh, here you are auditioning again. You thought you were all that, didn't you? Had that big job and here you are auditioning. All these other people, I'm like, yeah, that's the gig. The Hobbit wasn't my first film. I've been doing this for 20 something years. I understand that you get these amazing opportunities, you meet these amazing people, but it's all over when it's over. But it
yeah.
was depressing. I got to say that last day of filming, and I've got a photo of you and me and Graham McTavish, Adam Brown, and a few others. Peter Hamilton. We went to that bar in Miramar. Richard
It,
Armitage
it
was
was
still
at the
shooting
theater.
his
It was at the Roxy.
at the Roxy. That's right. And I've got a
I
photo,
got
and it's
video of
like
that
there's
too.
Yeah, where it's like bittersweet. So people are like, hey, you know,
Yeah.
it
I
was
remember
really
at the end, I was
deflating.
dancing. I was dancing with the band, and then I came outside and everyone had gone. And I was
Yeah,
like, oh, that's it. Like, that's literally it. And I think I might have got a ride with Dean and Sarah to the airport or something like that. And it was just like, yeah, that was weird. It was because it's like having, it's the best job in the world. You know, people say, what's the best job? And this has always been the best job. I mean, I've done some other jobs like acting, it'd be more challenging, or I've had more to do, you know, like, for example, a job where you can see my face and I say words. But as the job, this will never be bettered. And, you know, but yeah, like I think the normal life, it was hard to readjust like into that. And you talked before about what it kind of does with you as a to a person, and like especially as you get older, and like I'm a lot more appreciative, which is why I do like fan conventions. And I did an interview and they asked me about interacting with fans and stuff. I'm like, one of the best things is that it kind of takes me back. It just reminds me of how awesome it was and the friends I made and what a great experience. But I'm no longer grieving for it.
yeah,
I'm just remembering it. It's kind of like a loss. Like, I lost my dad in 2014, and I still grieve from time to time. But a lot of times, it's just remembering. It's like amazing memories. So, um, yeah, it's really interesting as you get older. I'm really appreciative, and it has opened doors for me, but at the same time, it didn't like I didn't suddenly get offers out of that job. I've got offers out of other jobs who work with directors, but not specifically out of that.
yeah.
That's a very good question. Thanks,
Really,
Amanda.
it's a very good answer too, wasn't
Yes.
it?
Yes.
Yeah, this is one that I really like asking people. What's a compliment that you've got from somebody that means more than any award could ever give you for the work that you've done?
Um, I think after all the because sometimes working with Pete, you don't know if he's been sarcastic or not. And he had really pushed the limit. I remember when he got dressed up as a dwarf, and he was like, "Oh, this is easy. This is easy. Ah, this is easy. What are you guys talking about?" You know, um, because it's a very Kiwi thing, right? And then at the very end at the rap party, he was just like, "You did a really great job," and that meant a lot because
Yeah,
being someone who's, I've always there's been like that tinge of self doubt and am I do I really belong here? And also being someone who's neurodiverse with ADHD, there's always like you say something and then you analyze what you've said for the next 2 hours, if not longer. Um, I was really trying to make sure he liked me and liked what I did. And, there was some things that he'd said that, like, people say things under stress, but I take them in the wrong way. So when he said that you did a great job, because he was under an enormous amount of stress, you know.
yeah,
Uh, and so that was awesome. That was on that night of the rap party. And also, the late great Andrew Leslie, he said something to me very early on. I mean, he did say once, he said to me, "You're the new guy, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." But I knew he was just like he was very generous, Andrew.
it
Um,
was.
and he sits because I've been trained in Meisner, and I've been trained about always having a point of view and always doing something. Not trying to be noticed, but just actually actively doing something within the scene, and that would be realistic to my world and my character. And so having a role like Bomber, where I didn't say anything, was a blessing for a Meisner trained actor, because I just had to be alive and doing stuff and not overdo it. I didn't have to act anything. I just had to kind of be. I mean, the costume itself did all the heavy lifting for me. And so when Andrew said to me something about, he goes, I always notice you. You're always doing something interesting. Um, I mean, I was basically eating most of the time. That was my kind of my character choice. Is that I it's knowing the kind of the pecking order, and people ask me about how they make the difference between people, but it was always being an ensemble. I always had a point of view. I knew kind of where I sat within the group. I was kind of one of the younger ones, along with Dean Naden, and Adam. I had great respect for the Royals. I didn't really have any understanding of the Royals of that. I was pretty amazed by Gandalf. probably a little bit scared. So I always had a point of view of where these people were. So I kind of kept quiet when Thorin was talking. I was very respectful. I would listen. And so it was important for like in my process is like when they were, and also like it was easy because as an actor working with all these actors of this caliber, it was really easy to kind of replicate that. And I say to people that those first few days filming in Bag End, it was the company getting to know each other, and these were us as actors getting to know each other. And all these actors had done way more than I did, so I kind of that was it felt natural. That was my place. But regardless of all that, nothing was quite as important as what was in front of me on my plate. So I'd always be listening and then I'd just be picking. And that's something I always did. And that was just a choice. And I wasn't trying to do anything in particular. But I remember when Andrew said that about, I can always see you doing stuff and you're kind of always alive. And that was a massive compliment because then I knew I was on the right track and I didn't have to try too hard and I just had to just be me. And the fact that people got Bombur the character without me saying any dialogue, because there was a point where I did have dialogue in the read through and we did the read through, and then I didn't have
I
dialogue. And
remember.
of course, my first impression was I completely blew the read through. But they, they said, look, there's going to be some physical gags that we'd give you rather than fighting for lines with some of the other guys. And I remember my agent; she was like, well, this is your big calling card, and I was like, look, I think this could be a good opportunity to create a point of difference for myself and my character. And it ultimately turned out to be the best choice.
Yeah.
For running and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, play the game. I remember having that conversation with you where you saying, the job is to play the game. What's the scene and what's the game in the scene? Because my whole point of view with Nori was looking every single set I went into, I was looking for an escape. Where's the back door and what can I steal?
Yeah,
What can I
yeah,
pinch from the set on camera and therefore get
yeah.
to keep?
Yeah, and they're always going to find those moments. Like they'll find the moments that work, and like sometimes even not listening. I remember one of the classic ones was in the barrels, which I still think was one of the most fun days, even though I almost literally overheated at one point,
Oh no.
um,
Yeah.
which kind of made us, you know, I can get how they might have thought we were being a bit precious, but no, unless you're in that, you don't understand. I had a wetsuit on with all that stuff, and I was overheating. But once we got on the barrels, and I remember Pete clearly going, "Look, when you get out of the barrels, you have to go out backwards. If you go out forwards, you'll get stuck, and we'll have to say cut, and it'll ruin the take." And I'll go, "Okay, yep, got it." My logical brain went, "Yep," and then the other part of me just went, "Phew, gone." And so we did the take, and of course I go out forwards. And then there's three. I think I know you may have been one of them. There's three people trying to drag me out of the barrel.
No,
Um,
I wasn't.
but you know
Yeah.
what? It made the film, so you're welcome, Pete.
Yeah. It was
But
great.
that wasn't by design. I just kind of like, I don't know, I could have been bowling over. I do remember that Bronson, oh no, it could have been Marky Lee at that time, whoever was my stunt dwarf, soaking wet because people say, oh, you get the heaviest costume. And sometimes I don't say anything. I let them believe I did, but I really didn't because mine was light. It was all fluff, basically, very light clothing, not a lot of armor and bits and bobs. But when it was wet, it was extremely heavy. And I think Marky Lee was like 285 kilos um,
Yeah.
you know, dripping wet. And then I had to walk up the hill to lunch.
I know we
So,
Graham McTavish talked about that actually in the behind the scenes of the barrel scene. We just watched it last night, and
mm,
it was hilarious. But also, I remember Richard Armitage sinking to the bottom of the river. They didn't show that on the behind the scenes, but I do remember that happening, where he
yeah,
just sank, boop. And a bunch of us went to run in to help him, and the safety guys were like, "No, we'll have you all sinking to the bottom of the river. You need to get out and let us do our job." We were
yeah.
very lucky with those safety guys. We had a lot of people there helping us, but I do remember it being for
I still
me
tell people at
a bit of
conventions
fun.
that, yeah, when that happens, that William and John actually got swept away down the river, and so from that point on, we actually had replacements in because they still haven't been found. But um, I
It
actually
showed.
I had an uncle. I had an uncle in Blenheim, and it was when we had that big flood day, and all the scaffolding went. And I remember
Yeah,
calling him
two
going,
and
"Mate,
yeah,
there's about $100,000 worth of scaffolding heading down your way. So get out with your whitebait net and see what you can catch." Probably
I
whitebait net
believe it
wasn't
was
it?
$250,000 worth of scaffolding went out to sea.
Yeah, nice, nice. Well, hopefully someone picked some of it up because it would have been, once you just, rinsed it off, and I think you'd
Mark
be
Hadlow
fine.
built a whole house from it.
Nice, of course he did.
In the Desolation of Smog, there's a scene where you're locked in a jail, and I noticed that you were looking at your food as if you couldn't even eat it. You were too depressed to eat it. And I thought that that was a really smart choice. And I was just really impressed by your ability to give Bombur such a personality and do so much with the character without having that dialogue to rely on. So I thought that was really cool.
Thank you. That means a lot because that was exactly what I was going for. And, sometimes it doesn't get noticed. You think like I'm just doing all this stuff. I think most people thought I was just depressed because I was locked in a cell with William Kircher, but no, it was about love you, Will.
I,
I definitely noticed, as someone who loves to eat food, I definitely noticed that.
yeah,
Yeah.
they never showed mine. I actually manufactured a shiv, like a shiv. I was gonna like get the elves against it, but no,
Mm.
they didn't want to show that. Too violent, I
No.
think.
Well, I mean, and the thing is, and that's the other thing I've learned as I got older. It's all about how does it serve the story and how does it serve the main characters. I've had so much. I did a show at the start of last year called Monarch: Legacy of Monsters. So
Oh yeah,
I got to meet with Kurt Russell. I didn't actually work with Kurt. I say I met him, but it was kind of a Kiwi meet. I was getting my wardrobe fitting. He was sitting outside the soundstage having a dart, and you know, I didn't want to go, oh, hey, he's having a rest, he's having a break. He's Kurt Russell. I gave him the old, hey, bro. And that was it. That's kind of my meeting. And he was like, hey, and that was my meeting. But I worked with a couple on that, lovely, lovely couple. And, I watched the scene. I did ADR and it was quite a funny scene. But it was all focused on them, obviously, and they had me, and even my dialogue. A lot of my dialogue was off camera. But when you look at it, you think, oh, this is about this moment with these two characters, and and you play your part, and sometimes it's not all about you, but you definitely learned that being a dwarf in the Hobbit because
yeah,
quite often we were featured extras on a day, but it's just those, the it's like the sum of all the parts, and sometimes if you just do your part and you do it well and it's alive ensemble, it just lifts everything because it was obviously all about Martin, it was about Richard, and there was those kind of moments. Like there was
yeah,
one, I remember one time, when it was in Bag End, when Balin and Thorin were having that discussion about the burglar not being the one, and I had to walk out with some more cheese, and William was sitting on his chair because he was not really that responsive, and my action was to walk past, but it felt wrong not to just offer him some food, and so I just stopped, gave him some food. He just looked forward, and I just kind of patted him on the shoulder and kept going because it kind of just felt like that's something you'd kind of do, and didn't want to steal the scene, but it just felt like that would, and that was there, just those kinds
yeah,
of things, kind of knowing your
yeah.
place, and knowing that it'll find you eventually. Because they shot so much. I mean, and I think when you talk about, was it the Battle of Five Armies? Was it the Desolation of Smaug? I mean, it could have been movie three initially. Like, obviously everything got shifted around.
Yeah. I remember the scene where Gandalf was fighting the Goblin King, and he falls
Mm.
back into me and Adam Brown, and I managed to catch Ian. Actually fell off the plinth, and Adam and I caught him, and we were just thinking, oh, that could have. Andy Serkis said, well, that could have gone very differently. Thank you for catching him. And after we'd finished the scene, he came up to Adam and I. He said, guys, thank you for telling the story so well. He said, I could really see the brotherly connection that you had going there. It's like he said,
Mm.
really been enjoying watching the dwarves do their job of telling the story, and having, like you say, when it's someone like Andrew Lesnie or Peter or someone like um, Andy Serkis, who take the time to just go, guys, I know that sometimes you feel like you're just in the background of shot, but it's really telling a story. It's painting the fabric of the picture. Like we are the expensive paint in the background of some of those shots.
It's also like you remind yourself of like, where am I? Because there were times when you get cheesed off with stuff, or like the Goblin Caves were definitely overheated in the Goblin Caves, and then you go, man, I'm working on this crazy, amazing film, living my best life, drinking coffee and playing PlayStation, which I did. I had FIFA in my caravan. We had our own vans. I mean, it was pretty awesome. Um, yeah, it was very cool. And you're right. Like, we just kind of do our thing. we're part of it, but it's a team sport, right?
It is. Yeah. Like FIFA. I could hear you guys. It was usually you and Aidan and Dean playing, and there'd be,
Yeah.
I was trying to learn my elaborate script, and here you were just making all this noise next door. I was like, oh, geez,
Yeah,
those
we
guys, I'm
did.
trying to
Although,
concentrate.
although we did keep it inside the caravan, unlike John Callan, who was playing his jazz music
I know.
endlessly, and it was probably about halfway through the shoot, like probably almost 9 months or so, where he realized that he had a button where he could not have the music blaring outwards, but actually just have it inside his band. And it took him like months to. I mean, it took us months to figure that out as well. We could have told him. It was
I do
fun though. It
remember
was like people asked me, "What was that like?" I was like, "Being at school." It was just basically 2 years of fart jokes, pretty much.
it was. Yeah, there was a lot of that. And a lot of people sleeping in the tent. I could never sleep in that cool tent, but you guys managed to do it. And
I
just
could sleep. Well, I'd basically had blanket and a mattress and a pillow, like all encapsulated on me. It was pretty comfy. I could just lean back and sleep I sleep anywhere. I used to sleep, getting
you had a
makeup
whole
done.
life going on in here. You had a whole life in this bit here. You had your
Yeah,
phone in
like a
there
big child.
sometimes, and yeah.
Well, I had to sleep because we got up so early. Um, I would sleep in the makeup chair. And so it was usually peaceful and calm, except my flatmate in the chair next to me would come bounding in at like 4:30, just literally leaping with his coffee, alive.
Who's
Continue, mate.
that? You?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know who that could have been.
But
Yeah, they
even
would.
that, I would just kind of sleep, and I'd have kind of coffee after. It was good. I'm probably more a morning person now as I get older. Definitely. Get up, go for a walk outside, just reset the cortisol, feed the cat, give the cat a bit of a beard rub. That's kind of the regular routine. And then come to the office. So
How do you think I feel living with him? And I'm not a morning person. Early in the morning, he'll say, "Good morning," and I'll say, "I'm still asleep. Don't
yeah,
talk to me,
it's like
please."
Jed. How do you describe Jed? It's like he's like the intro music of one of those 1980s sitcoms. You know, it just comes dun, da, 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 and he's like, "Hey," and I don't think I ever said it out loud because it would have been rude, but I'd just be like, "Oh, God's sake."
People did.
It's
Martin would
it's
say,
4:30 in the
Jed,
morning.
Jed. Yeah, Martin would say it. He'd go, Jed, 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 go away. Stop talking. And just go.
I was gonna say, I definitely tell Jed often, I love the energy. I appreciate it. Love to see it, but I just can't match it right now. Just give me a minute.
I know.
Yeah, yeah. It's yeah, yeah. It's good. It's good to have an understanding, and I think anyone who's kind of like a lot of us who have been diagnosed, as being neurodivergent recently, there's a whole level of understanding of like, that's why. Like the
Yes.
first time when we're in New Zealand and my daughter's mother would, I think I gave my dad a Benny Hill DVD for Christmas, and I put it on, and she'd never seen it before. And within 5 minutes, she just looked at me and went, "Oh," you know. I had a friend of mine, a client who he was MC at his younger brother's wedding, and he played that as the wedding march coming in, which I thought was pretty.
We're aging ourselves by, that was on TV when I was a young man growing up. That and
The two Ronnies.
um yeah, the two Ronnies. Oh man, the two Ronnies were amazing. And Morecambe
I
and
used to watch that
Wise.
with my dad every Saturday night, and Morecambe and Wise. I love Morecambe and Wise. Dick
Yeah.
Emery,
Yep.
yeah, Dave Allen, Kenny Everett was one of my favorites, and there's a great character called Angry of Mayfair, who used to just rant and go off, and that was my
Yeah.
nickname for Graham McTavish.
Yeah.
I'm
Can't,
curious
yeah,
about something. So I
yeah.
I know that a lot of members of the fandom of Lord of the Rings are neurodivergent, and I was just curious, are there any challenges that you faced in your career as far as the process of acting that have shown up because of your neurodivergence?
Yeah, I mean, and almost all of them have been like, retrospective now. Um, a lot of it is about fitting in. And I remember when I first arrived on set, the big job, um, that self-doubt and not belonging and then trying to talk yourself or, using talking and over talking and oversharing to try and fit in, which then of course you completely overanalyze um and then actually kind of make it worse for yourself. So that's the main thing. Um, I don't know. I think as far as the process goes, is because I've got some clients who are at various levels of the spectrum, and especially the ones my autistic clients, um, when they get set into, and you see this so often when they're doing the actual work, all that goes away. And I think that's why I'm so comfortable on stage, because my confidence is way better, or even in front of the camera. I mean, a lot of that's come with the fact I've been doing it for a long time and I'm well practiced now at my craft. But yeah, a lot of things are flashing back. Well, I go, oh, that's probably what that was. The trying to fit in, or the trying too hard, or I remember like so many times cracking jokes with Pete, trying to fit in and just go, oh, what did I say that? And then he'd say something smart back. Um, and trying to go toe to toe. And I totally didn't need to do any of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so but little things kind of pop for me every day now about that. Trying to fit in at school or trying to be one of the cool kids. And then luckily I kind of found my tribe of people. There's a beautiful speech. It could have been at the SAG Awards. It was they gave that great the honorary prize to Harrison Ford, and he talked about you know being like one of the cool kids at school, and then the geeks and that were over there, and then you realize that was actually they were his people, you know. Um, and so I was lucky I found that quite early. I didn't do any acting till I was about 10, but then I did speech training and but yeah, like I think one of the biggest things I found was distracting. I got distracted a lot. All my school reports were like needs to apply himself, needs to concentrate, easily distracted, which is now it completely tracks with being neurodivergent and ADHD, and
Yeah.
so yeah, I think I've given myself not such a hard time now for a lot of those things. Um, because I am distracted. I mean, I've got probably, oh, not too many, probably about, I don't know, 25 tabs open. Luckily, there's no music coming from anywhere, but that's generally how it plays out with I mean, I'm just a nightmare for like IT help chats. Close your tabs. Oh, yeah, that might do it. It's always like that. I still have, up till a few years ago, I was still having dreams of, having to complete all my assessments. I didn't
Wow.
get university entrance, which is like the big qualification. I kind of cruised through school certificate, which was the first qualification in New Zealand, um, because I just found it really hard to study. I found it really hard to swap for tests. I was always last minute, always running late for things. But now, becoming, as you probably know, when you become aware of this, you can actually put things in place. I get up in the morning now and go for a bit of a walk and reset cortisol. I go look at the stars at night before I go to bed, make sure my phone's away. And there's just little things that I do just to kind of calm things down. I'm not relying on alcohol anymore, because I realize that's a dopamine hit. I've found other ways to relax. So yeah, I mean, it's a huge number of things that have affected my career, and my acting. But it's also, I guess, solidified because I do acting coaching. Why I'm really good at coaching, and in particular breaking down scenes. I can see things in scenes when I coach people that to me just seem obvious that people can't see, and because I've always asked the why. And I always tell the story when I was a young kid. My dad was a horse trainer. I love my dad. I was kind of like the chip off the old block. Used to follow him around, wear the same clothes, just follow him around the stables, and always ask why. Yeah, but why? Yeah, but how come? Yeah, but why? Yeah, but why? Yeah, but how come? And then I remember one day in particular, he just turned around and he goes, "Because it just bloody does." And my dad was a very, I mean, you've met my dad, Jed, and he
Yeah.
he was a lovely man and quite patient. But there's a limit. And so I was that guy. Um, and then I look at what he went through in his life, maybe, and my mum, and I'm sure, like my mum, I love my mum, but she's always like, she's going on a cruise at the end of the year. And I was like, so what are your dates? She goes, oh, I think I've got it written down somewhere. And that was always, she's got it written down somewhere. There's a desk. And I'm sure there's stuff going on for her that she may or may not ever recognize. Um, but yeah, I think it makes a massive difference and creatively. And now I can just kind of launch myself into my work. And when I'm doing it, everything else just kind of melts away.
Yeah, thank you for that, Stephen. Pretty brilliant answer, mate.
So you find that once you lock in and you're there on set and they say action, you're able to just get to a place where you can just focus on what you're there to do.
Yeah, and just know I'm really good at it. I'm really good at what I do. Mainly because I've enjoyed it and I've done the work, and it kind of like I do voiceovers, and every actor it's like, oh, I want to do voiceovers. It looks like good money. I'm like, yeah, it's taking me years to get to the point where I get paid for voiceovers. In New Zealand, like it'd be impossible to make a living, I think, out of a voice
Oh, yeah.
because
It
I used
is,
to
yeah.
work for radio stations and I was a copywriter and we used to just voice them all ourselves. So, um, but yeah, when I'm on set, I know my process, and I just love playing, and I can really. That's why I've always been good with characters and imitating and doing voices and accents. I'm always very very good at picking up accents. I just kind of immerse myself, and it's just play, you know. And I remember an old teacher of mine. He said it's just like when you're a kid, it's just like playing pretend, except with a paycheck. So I've actually been like I watch a lot of television. I've been watching a whole lot of stuff. I've been watching Carl on the boys, which I love. But I cottoned onto something on the weekend. I saw a clip of. It's called I think is it called Norseman or The Norseman? It could just be called
Oh, the
Norseman.
Norseman, yeah. Yeah.
And the Norseman, and it's like a Norwegian one. And apparently they filmed every scene in Norwegian and in English. That they did two versions, and it's a real
Wow.
it's a very Kiwi style comedy, a very Taika kind of over explaining, very real, like hilarious. It's so funny but really dry.
Yeah.
Anyway, I recommend
I'll
you
have a
watch
look.
it
Yeah. Yeah.
because that's my background too. My background is Scandinavian. My grandfather moved to Wellington in the he was maybe late 20s. He was late 20s. That would have been maybe the 50s, maybe the 40s, 50s. Oh no, it would have been before. That would have been the 30s because my mother was born in 1945. So yeah, it would have been in the 30s. And then his brother moved out, and they were both from Finland, and they built a lot of the big structures in Wellington. They worked for Fletcher's
Oh,
Wow.
okay.
Fletcher's building company. Because I remember when I was still a kid, and I go around to my great uncle's place. There was Arthur Sundholm and Bertel Sundholm, and they both had places. They both lived in Wellington, but they both had places in Tuhora Beach on the Kapiti, which you
Where
you,
my
you
dad
know.
lives.
Yeah, yeah, and they made my pop made. We had a little mini whitebait net. We used to go whitebaiting, and I remember clear as day going to my uncle Bert's place and picking up a shovel or a wheelbarrow and going, what's FBC? And they were all like Fletcher Building Company, like shovels, and no, they just would have borrowed them, for over the weekend for a few years, probably. So that was their background. So my background's all Finnish, and I remember one weekend after we did HobbitCon in Germany, I was going up to Gothenburg to do the Sci-Fi World or whatever show, which was fantastic with Paul Blake, who was Greedo, and Gunnar Hansen, who was Leatherface, and
Yeah.
Corin Nemec, I think, was doing it, and Michael Madsen
Oh, wow.
was there as well. And we went to Gothenburg, and I did that. And in between, I flew to Finland. It was the first time I'd actually been back to the homeland, and went and stayed with my cousin for like 3 days. And I think I drank more coffee in the 3 days I was in Finland than I had in the three
I
months
know.
previous. In,
They drink more coffee than a Kiwi, man. I
yeah,
was like shocked.
yeah. So that's
Yeah.
there, and it's a little village, and pretty much everyone in that little village are my family, and they've got those big red houses,
Yeah.
the big red barns, and the old homestead's gone, but the second old house, which was for the next son or the oldest son, that's still standing, and the little barns are still like that. That was Dad was still alive, so that was a long time ago. That was like 12, 13 years ago. So yeah, so that's my Viking blood, along with the Celt blood from the hunter side, from my dad's side.
You just didn't have a hope.
That makes me
No,
think of another question, actually.
yeah.
If you were stranded on a desert island, would you be able to survive? And who from the Hobbit films would you choose to be with you or to help you survive?
It would definitely be one of the Kiwi guys, probably Jed, um, because as much fun as some of the other blokes are, I don't think they'd survive on a desert island. They're just too precious.
No.
Um, you know,
Can we eat sand?
yeah,
Can we eat a sand edible? Is it? Hmm.
I think Jed, and I think you'd be the survivor. You could go hunt all kinds of stuff like that. You find food.
Excellent. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, but if depending if I wanted to sleep on, I'd probably go around the other side of the island. That would be
Just call me when you needed food, Jed. Have you caught anything? Yep.
still brought up in the same part of the world where I was, and
Yeah.
you know, so you'd be able to you know, catch whatever we needed, do a bit of hunting.
Because you're such a good cook. I think that would be a brilliant combination. I'd catch the food and then you'd find 17 different ways to make the mussel and onion soup flavorful. You'd find herbs and spices there. It'd be awesome.
But you'd have to balance it out with the annoying part of me talking about how I'm going to cook stuff like endlessly. So
True.
that you'd have to
Again,
try.
I'd go over the other
Yeah,
side of the island while you were cooking. You could
yeah,
call me.
yeah. I think space is very important if you're surrounded on with anyone. I think space is
Yeah.
incredibly important.
Have you ever had to do a part or performed when your heart was absolutely breaking?
I remember doing an audition actually, um, and it was when we found out Dad was ill, and I'd just gone over to see him, um, and then we thought, oh, we'll just pop over and say hi, and then come back. Went to see him, and didn't really know what was up. And then I had a recall for a really big for a show. It was probably one of my first would have been my first kind of real decent roles. And I remember walking in there to the casting with Greg Apps, and I was just so anxious. I was so nervous. And I think because I knew in my heart that this was bad for Dad, but I couldn't kind of calculate it, you know, because I didn't really put it down to that. And I remember just blowing the audition and talking way too much. And I remember getting the feedback like I lost them in the room, and that was devastating. And then I remember talking to Dad. He goes, "Oh well," you know. And then of course we went back. We thought, well, because they were going to travel over, Mum and Dad were going to travel over to Sydney, and then um, we thought, well, he probably can't travel. He's got a thing on his leg, and so we went over. We thought, let's go for a week, and we stayed for like 6 weeks, and he passed away in that time. And we had cremation and had a big service and all that kind of stuff. So we never really came home. And then we came home when it was all over. So I remember clearly that recall. I don't think I had any work around that time. I remember doing a voiceover job from the hospice, like for some,
Wow.
hey, it's like, get 3 buckets of paint for only, just all this mad stuff. So yeah, and it does. And I think in those kind of times, you as humans, and it's something that's really helped, I guess, with my acting, you always look at a silver lining, is that we always try to look at the good side. We don't want to be heartbroken. We don't want to be angry. We don't want to be sad. So we actually, that's why I put on a brave face. If I say, how are you feeling? And you're having a terrible
Yeah.
day or something really bad's happened, you go, I'm fine, right?
The industry it doesn't often allow us to take a pause when we're working to do what other
Mm,
people are sort of allowed to. The old show must go on. But at the same
mm.
time, you lose a bit of that. Sometimes you lose some real life experiences. You lose some real life moments of being able to grieve properly. I've been
Yeah,
I've been in shows where stuff is going down, and I've just got to turn up to the theater, and
yeah,
you need doing a comedy or what, you got to pull it out for the audience. And later on just going, oh, I really wish I'd been able to have that moment.
Yeah,
It's kind of like I got swept under the rug
yeah,
for that time, and I wasn't able to actually appreciate what I needed to appreciate for myself in terms of my own
yeah.
process of grieving.
I think sometimes it's a nice distraction too, to
Yeah,
be doing something great, especially if you're on stage and that's your happy place. Sometimes to
yeah.
experiencing that happiness of doing that and then kind of dealing with it. And a part of our job is by tapping into that and having to experience it. And especially when we're dealing with scenes. And I talk to people about, like this is really hard. I'm like, yeah, it is hard. It's hard to tap in. It's hard to be truthful, and it's hard to because it's all about. I remember working with David Galpalo, the great David Galpalo over here, and we went up to the North Kimberley, and Uncle David kind of took us around these amazing parts. And I remember standing in the middle of this desert and him putting like ochre on me, all the paint and stuff. And he said something really interesting to me once. He goes, like I was trying to build up to it and feel it. And he goes, you don't cry, you make them cry. And and that was really like sometimes it's just not there. He also said something. I remember we were at a place called El Questro, which is up north. This beautiful big ranch. Took us like it used to take us 2 hours to drive to set every day, and we're staying like glamping in these little things. And we'd get up at like 4:30, and then have breakfast at 5, then get on the road. And I and I remember seeing him that one morning, and I was like, "Oh, so David, how did you sleep?" He goes, "I don't know, can't remember." I'm like, "Well, that's a pretty fair answer."
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Oh, I have a question for you both. Who on set of The Hobbit made you laugh the easiest?
Definitely Martin
Martin,
for me. Yeah.
yeah.
He was always on. He was never not on.
He was always on, and also Ian, but Ian wasn't trying. Like it's
No.
just Ian being. I remember there was a one particular. We were in the Misty Mountains, like getting rained on, because people would go, "Oh, yeah, the Misty Mountains, you got blah 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 blah," and they, yeah, blah blah blah, and he wouldn't tell you, and he goes, "Oh yeah, and it's raining," and then the sprinklers would start, and he with no warning, um, and then I remember one time, Pete, you'd remember this when he goes, we're at the packs and we were wet. And he go, well, remember the World War I and all the diggers were up there. They were carrying, he was trying to make us feel like we had it easy. The diggers were, and he was in his tent on his
Yeah.
microphone. And the diggers would be carrying these big packs and they'd be, wouldn't be eating and they wouldn't sleep for days and blah, blah, blah. And then Ian's like, yes, and of course, all the generals were shouting orders from tents several hundred meters behind them.
That's
And that
right.
kind of stuff that only Ian could say.
Yeah. Yeah.
He always
I
stood
do
up for
remember
us. He was always a
he
massive
did.
advocate for us.
Yeah. I do remember Martin had done quite a few takes and wasn't quite getting the timing for a camera or something. And Ian McKellen just put his arm around him and says, do try and get it right, Marty, or we'll be here till 2025.
Such
Yeah.
confidence. Ian had such
Yeah.
confidence. But there were funny times. I mean, Pete made us laugh quite a few times because he'd
He
always
did.
send. I mean, that time he sent Kieran Shah during the Goblin scene to
So
hump Mark Hadlow's leg, and Mark was always the butt of the joke,
he
simply
was.
because he used to react quite badly to it, which is just like you know it's you don't do that. I mean that just encourages. The same with
It
practical
does.
jokes. Whoever takes it badly is always going to be the next victim, and continuously. And poor old Mark did cop it quite a bit from Peter, but that's a love thing. Like because he knows obviously Peter's worked with Jed and Mark more than anyone, so he kind of knew that.
In the
Um,
bonus features, when you were in the barrels,
mm,
Peter Jackson, it was the end of the day, I think, and he was pretending or joking about making you spend the night or something. And then the
yeah,
camera just zooms in on Mark's face, and it's so
He
hilarious.
was just so broken. Like,
yeah.
he'd had enough. But yeah,
Well,
there
yeah,
was that
he'd,
one.
he'd, he'd take things literally as well. I think sometimes.
He did. I reminded Mark of the day that Peter and Weta played a joke where his forehead was really thick and he couldn't
Mm.
move it at all. And Pete kept saying, Mark, yeah, so that was great, but except for you, Mark, there's nothing, there's nothing going on. You need to really, react with your. Mark just was just
I know he would have been devastated. Like he would have been devastated because I think that would have been a big thing for him. And I remember it was particularly it was when we were staying in Middlemarch because I think we stayed at the same place. Remember, and
We did.
we went
Yeah.
and Graham and I went on that bike ride, and and we would because they were worried that the prosthetics, the silicon was going to melt in the sun because it was hot. It was in central Otago, which is really quite a hot place in the summertime, and so they increased the mixture of the of our prosthetics. And then Pete was like, we need more movement. And we were like, and I ended up having to talk to Caro, the first, and saying, look, the reason why we can't is because it's thick. And I get it. I understand why, but that's why, because it just seemed like banging up against a brick wall. It's like, we can't. And then makeup supervisor comes over, Tammy, and is like, oh, we're sorry, it's uncomfortable. I'm like, no, it's not about uncomfortability. It's just the fact that it can't move. And we just wanted them to understand that because
Yeah.
you'd be like acting your pants off with this prosthetic, especially when it's thick and you're doing that, and it would come across on camera like this.
And Pete's like, you're
Um,
running away from wags, and it's really scary. It's like, yeah, I'm really scared. I'm
yeah,
really, really scared.
yeah, scared, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
because all you had were your eyes and your lips. Anyway,
Scene 88. I
That's
just,
kind of what it's like being autistic. You're freaking out on the inside sometimes, but on the outside, you're just perfectly calm.
it's
yeah,
true. I often
yeah.
don't know that you're freaking out on the inside.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, what were you going to say?
I can't remember. Can't have been important. I've seen 88. Yeah. I mean, people, there's a lot of laughter at conventions. People go, scene 88. It's like we literally ran the length of the South Island sprinting.
Mm,
And I remember there was one where we were sprinting uphill. And I remember getting to the end of it and John Callan kind of coming in, 30 seconds after. And I remember saying to him, you okay? And he went, my knees are 65 years old, like the rest of me. My
yeah,
knees
he
can't
was
keep
a
up.
trooper. He was a
He was
trooper.
such a trooper.
Honestly,
Yeah,
he was the oldest by quite a long way, and he was such a
yeah,
trooper.
he
I
was.
think at one point there was just me and you in there, maybe William. They'd swapped everyone out,
Yeah,
but I like doing all that kind of stuff. I love mucking in with the, we've done all the training. I love mucking in with all
yeah,
the stunty. It was good fun.
yeah. Yeah, we got to travel in Pete's plane, I think, didn't we?
Yes, we did. I think there was a big swap over. There was a big swap over because I think Graham was meant to go in Dean, and then we swapped over at Christchurch Airport, and they went one way, and then we went. Then that's right. Went to Mount Cook after we wrapped. They helicoptered us from the location at Tekapo to Mount Cook to jump on the plane.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember I've got my video. I got a video. I've still got the video somewhere of that. Um, and I actually left it rolling because I needed to go to the bathroom at
Yes.
one point, and it wasn't a quick one. And that was a box I ticked. And and
They sold the plane. They had to sell the plane.
yes, and apparently word got out quite quickly.
They did.
Yeah, and I was asked by Amanda, who was looking after us at the time.
Cars coordinator, yeah.
How
Yeah.
was the plane ride? I was like,
Yeah.
how was the bathroom? So it was good. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
The coffee be coffee.
The coffee be coffee. Yeah, I mean, the plane was, I talked to the pilot, he said, it's a write-off. We can never fly on this again. We just have to sell it.
Gotta go. I do remember the food was particularly good. We got little snacks on there.
We did.
I think you went in the front, didn't you? Like, didn't you go into the?
I got to go in the jump seat, yeah. And that
Yeah.
was the pilot said to me, he said, now don't panic. So we've got to lift the front up and then we've got to slam it down.
Hmm.
And when we slam it back down, it'll give us enough lift to get off here because it's a very short runway for
Yeah,
this plane.
I remember that because you left your cell phone on your seat, and when we took
Yeah.
off, it sort of came like a Polaris missile. Luckily, it didn't luckily, it just kind of boom.
Yeah. Yeah,
It
that's
was
right.
crazy.
Yeah.
And it took us
It
like
was
30
crazy.
minutes to fly from Mount Cook to Nelson.
Yeah, it was a really quick flight.
Yeah, but I did
It
feel
was
lighter, so obviously it was
The plane
Sorry,
didn't.
Pete.
The plane was like,
I don't think I've ever
The
publicly
back seat
apologized.
joining the Pile High Club.
yeah,
Yeah, pile high. When you got to go, you got to go. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, not sorry.
yeah. Oh,
Because we went straight
we'll
from
have.
set. There was no opportunity to, you know.
I know. Yeah, it was a scene that you and me and Will did that never actually made the cut too. Didn't
Probably.
make the cut in the end. Yeah. We were meant to run the wrong way towards the wags and then realize and then turn around. But, things happened.
Yes.
Do you think that acting has made you more empathetic or more guarded?
Oh, definitely more empathetic. Yeah. I mean, I think I was anyway. I was quite empathetic, but I think when I was probably younger, I was probably more worried about myself, about trying to please other people and worried about where I was and who I wasn't. So as you get older, um, I don't really care about that anymore.
Yeah.
But also like being an actor is about obviously understanding character, but you know, it's funny. People go, "How do you create all these characters?" I'm like, "Well, it's in yourself. It's like, and it's a very, one of the foundational Meisner premises is that it's all about being truthful in imaginary circumstances, and you know, casting. They want to see you like the reason they choose you is because they want to see your interpretation rather than you have to try and perfect it and trying to change yourself into something you're not. It's kind of like you in specific circumstances. So yeah, I've learned a lot more about myself and a lot more about the world. Um, I've learned a lot more about what I'll tolerate. Um, and sometimes that's could be construed as like being a grumpy old man and opinionated, but it's also about more accepting about, I don't have to try and I was having this conversation with a friend of mine actually recently and about, no longer chasing friends who are interested in catching up or, I'm comfortable with where I'm at and I want to be around people who, um, you know, not in a selfish way, but they kind of offer something and they lift me up and they kind of make me feel great about myself and vice versa. And I hope that my friends feel that with me, and that's why I love
Yeah.
coaching because that's kind of what it's all about confidence and about people living their passion and doing what they want to do as opposed, more than just, trying to book jobs and stuff, which is the main game. So yeah, I think it's just like a natural thing with acting is that you do learn more about humanity. You learn more about yourself in particular. Um, so yeah, definitely, I'm definitely a lot more open. Um, and I'm probably not as much of a people pleaser as I was even when we did the movies. I'm probably a bit more comfortable with
It,
myself.
it was it was hard not to be then though. It was like,
Oh, totally.
I mean, you sort of they build you up. They say, you're part of the company. You're one of the 13, with Gandalf and Bilbo, and it's hard not to start to feel like because you are, as you say, you've been pampered every day. Someone's picking you up.
Mm.
Brent Gilbert used to pick me up every morning with uns 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 music at
Oh
three
yeah, yeah,
three
yeah, yeah.
thirty in the
I
morning.
Brent all the
The
time.
neighbors
I Brent.
hated him. Yeah, my
Yeah,
neighbors were like, "Can you who that guy who comes early in the morning? Can you tell him to turn his music down?" Just he would turn up with just blaring. Like, "Hey Jed, how's it going?" That's why I used to arrive in makeup like that because I was in the car.
well, he used to pick me up as well, Brent. I love Brent, and he he'd turn up early and see because we were staying in Seaturn, and then go for a skate. He'd just bring a skateboard and he'd go for a bit of a skate, and then when I was ready, we'd kind of leave, for
Yeah,
the mammoth sort of 5.5 minute journey to see it.
yeah. I was
Yeah,
in Lower Bay, so he'd always check out the surf. He'd go, "I just got to pull over here, mate." He'd check out the surf and go, "Yeah, after I've dropped you off, I'll make you a smoothie and then I'll come out here and have a
yeah.
surf." But what was my point with that? There was no point. It was just telling a story.
That's like Martin asking you, is there a point to
There's
this
no
story,
point to
Jen?
this. Oh yeah,
Oh, I
just
think it was about people pleasing.
yeah, but just I found myself doing the same thing of being, wanting to find out how I could ingratiate myself. It's a natural thing to do.
Mm,
I genuinely love that crew because I've worked with them a lot, and I've found the people that I wanted to talk to. But yeah, we had a lot of sitting around, and when you have a lot of sitting around, you start to sort of wonder what it is that you can contribute and what you can do better, and without just relaxing into it and knowing that you've already got the gig. They've already cast you because they like what you
yeah,
do. They wanted you to be this character. Just play the game, and I would find myself just going, geez, just enjoy this, mate. Just settle down,
yeah,
like having a little talk to myself.
yeah. but they were such at a high level and it was such a big thing. And I found that as well. And often I remember a friend also telling me, like, when you get in the public eye or if it's something even bigger, you start to doubt yourself. And a lot of it for me was driven by, am I good enough to do this? Should I be here? Do I really even belong here? I remember Adam and I sitting next to each other in Bag End at one point and just going, because there was a couple of Adam Browns on IMDb, and there's a couple of Stephen
Yeah.
Hunters. I'm like, do you think they've got the right one? You know, we were
Yeah.
just like hoping they wouldn't go, oh, sorry, actually, it's the other guy.
If more of us valued food and cheer and song above hoarded gold, it would be a merrier world.
May the hair on your toes never fall out.
Stephen Hunter, it's been an absolute pleasure. You are my piece of gold for this week. Ka kite,
Thank
kia kaha,
you.
arahanui.